The cloud is significant. Remember, when the Father came down to Mount Sinai, there was a cloud. When the Messiah returns, there's a cloud. When he left after the resurrection, what received him? It was a cloud that received him. So you have this cloud being significant, and like many things in the Bible, we overlook it. But what was its purpose? Well, for one, it says here, this is a command to Moses from the Most High. The Lord said to him, "Go down, charge the people, lest they break through unto the Lord to gaze, and many of them perish." So the cloud was so that they couldn't see him. He didn't want people breaking through to see him in his great glory, because it would kill them. It would overwhelm them. They would die. And so you have this cloud preventing the people from dying. That's a great thing to do, shielding them from his magnificent presence that would overwhelm and kill them. I mean, just the brightness, I couldn't imagine. So you would need this cloud when he came down to the mountain to keep them from, like it says here, gazing in and perishing. So that was the original purpose of that first cloud with the first trumpet. Now we're waiting on another cloud and another trumpet and the Messiah, and it tells us every eye will see him, right? Because the truth of what we live on makes that possible. But every eye will see the Messiah. And when you look at what the Messiah says with his return and the clouds of heaven, it's something that brought a lot of anger to the ones judging him, because all he said was, "Hereafter shall you see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven." So there's those clouds. And speaking of those clouds, it's quite controversial talking about clouds. It made the priest so angry that he rent his clothes and said, "He hath spoken blasphemy. What further need have we of witnesses? Behold, now you have heard his blasphemy," talking about them clouds. "What think ye?" They answered and said, "He is guilty of death." What would make them so angry? Because after that it says they spit in his face and buffeted him, and others smote him with the palms of their hands, saying, "Prophesy unto us, thou Christ, who is he that smote thee?" So they are so angry. They're hitting him, spitting on him, ripping their clothes, because he talked about the clouds. And when I first read this, I thought, why were they so angry at him talking about this? Well, you go back to Daniel, the prophecy that they're probably familiar with, and it says, "I kept watching the night visions when I saw, coming with the clouds of heaven, someone like a son of man. He approached the Ancient One and was led into his presence." So you have the Messiah being led into the presence of the Ancient One, the Most High. To him was given rulership, glory, and a kingdom, so that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His rulership is an eternal rulership that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. So you have the Messiah's words being very similar to that. And where it gets interesting is when you look at other translations about what Yeshua says, and he tells us that in the Hebrew translation that I found when I translated it to English, that you would see him sitting at the right hand of God and coming with the clouds of heaven. So not the right hand of power this time. And then this made me look elsewhere, and I found a Hebrew version of Matthew that is alleged to be older than the modern day versions that we have. And it says, "I say to you, you have yet to see the Son of God sitting at the right of the power of God, coming on the clouds of heaven." And so, totally different than just the right hand of power. Now I think I see why the priest was so angry he was ripping his clothes apart, because he's telling him he's the fulfillment of that prophecy in Daniel, or he's going to be the fulfillment of that prophecy. That made them angry. They're like, all right, now we got to take him out, because he's saying he's literally the Messiah. This made them angry. And me saying this now makes most of Christianity angry, because they think the Messiah is coming back alone. But remember the purpose of the cloud. The purpose of the cloud was so that it could keep people from gazing at the Most High and dying. People have already seen the beloved Son. When he returns, every eye is going to see him. I believe the purpose of the cloud stays the same. There's also the trumpet of God. Okay? I always believed that, maybe it was an archangel or the Messiah blowing this trumpet. And there's verses that kind of make it look like it's the Messiah that's blowing the trumpet. But what if It's the Most High blowing his own trumpet. It's the trumpet of God, and it's the breath of life being blown out of this trumpet. Imagine a resurrection taking place. Wouldn't be that hard to fathom when you have the breath of life blowing out of a trumpet. How great would that be? Okay, so I mean, this is something to think about for those of you who have never looked into this topic. This is something that I feel is powerful, and it's missing from a lot of people's understanding of the return, and it's something that has really changed the way I view the return.